Howdy, everyone. It's me talking about mental health again. I've got a lecture coming up, or I've got to record a lecture coming up. So I figured I'd just try to get this off my mind and see if I can get my head straight. I don't even know if I'm going to post it. Trigger warning. I will be sharing some stories, not my own, but of stories of folks that I know. Their trauma. And they ain't pretty. But they do serve a purpose, or at least I hope they'll serve a purpose. Because what I want to talk about is the, I hate to say benefit, the positive, I guess, side of my trauma. And hopefully this might be useful to others that also have suffered from trauma or working through trauma. As I mentioned in a previous video, that is what I'm currently doing is working through my own, finally, I suppose. And but I wanted to give you some kind of insight as to what a positive sort of insight as to what that trauma has done for me, I suppose. Yeah, when I was a kid, when I was growing up, particularly through high school, I was kind of an evil little shit. You could probably go so far as to claim that they didn't have the term back then, but I was part of the alt-right back then. Not as overtly racist, but I remember one day I was walking, I think through the mall with my mother and her friends, and I was just on a tirade about welfare and the welfare state. And I made some kind of comment like, if you don't work, starve. If you don't work, then the government should not support you in any way. And yeah, you should basically starve. My mother laughed and told me I probably shouldn't say such things in public. Not that I was wrong, but I shouldn't let people know that that's how I felt. I had a lot of anger. And even through college, I had a lot of anger. I didn't exactly know where it came from. And well, as I know now, it came from my upbringing, which I will spare you the details of. But I will share these two stories. So I was been, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I've been hospitalized a few times. And so I've heard a lot of stories, a lot of different people's traumas and struggles and so forth. And two have always stuck with me. They sort of, their demons have become my demons in a way. So there's one gentleman who shared with me, with all of us at the hospital, shared with us that from approximately the age of elementary school to just before high school, he was regularly molested by not one, but both of his parents. And the way he described it, I never asked him this, but the way he described it, I was very curious to wonder, or very curious to know whether or not the sole reason these folks had kids was to have a convenient sex toy. The insidious part about it, the part that really, really got to me, was they posted a schedule of it on the fridge where he could see it every day. And kind of like a chore list, as if they couldn't remember, because they split what they did. They never did it together. Like they couldn't remember which days were theirs. So they put it up on the fridge so he could see it. There was also another woman, there was a woman along with him, and she shared that she was in a very abusive relationship. She was battered on the regular, and hospitalized, and she was stuck, as many women who experience domestic violence are. But she thought she had a savior. She thought she had a gentleman who could be her white knight, and in the beginning, he was. He got her, managed to get her out of that situation, and she got away from her abuser. And as far as I know, at that point, she never went back to him, and he never found her again. However, she later found out that he was abusing her daughter, and her response after she shared that story was, at least he wasn't beating me. I share these stories because they, as I said, they've stuck with me. And so I've been given the advice many times that when I interact with folks, I should look at these as people, everyone really, as if I were talking to Christ, as if this were Christ in disguise, as it were, and treat him accordingly, or treat them accordingly. I've always, given a certain point of view, I've always found that to be a cynical way of looking at things. But what I do now, and have for a very long time, is, or at least have, so it's a trial. Obviously, I don't succeed every time, but when I talk to people, and particularly when they are in stress or when they're in need, I look at them and say, what has this person gone through? Because none of us know. These two folks, yeah, they were in a hospital, and obviously, one can expect that they had trials and tribulations, but on the outside world, they interacted with folks every day carrying this. And I highly doubt anyone knew. I highly doubt anyone that they interacted with knew that they were carrying this. So when I look at folks and when I interact with folks, like I said, particularly when they're in need, I remember them. Or at least I remember the empathy that I felt for them. And I think to myself, what has this person gone through? What horrific shit has this person seen? I don't assume that everyone has horrific shit in their past. It's simply the possibility that motivates me to treat people as kindly and as lovingly as I possibly can. And so that's the benefit I see with my trauma, is that I turned from a kid that was angry, didn't give a shit about anyone, really had no real love for life or for life in and upon itself, and experiencing my own trauma and experiencing the stories of those who have seen trauma has taught me empathy, has taught me that the pain that I feel from what I've experienced is the same pain that everyone other people have felt. And knowing that and experiencing that myself, I don't wish it on anyone. And I want to help folks as much as I possibly can. So when it comes to small things like a student needing an extension on a homework or assignment because they just shit happens, or the Karen phenomenon, which I find to be problematically sexist. But these folks, their actions have been immortalized in the internet, and we have no idea what these people have gone through. We have no idea what life has done, has happened to them up until this point, to make them act the way they did. Now, obviously, the student asking for an extension could be snowballing me. They could be blowing smoke up my ass. They could just be lying, and they just were lazy. Whatever. That's a possibility. That I'm being taken advantage of. And with Karens, it's possible if their motives are fairly despicable. But it shouldn't really matter. In my view, it doesn't matter, really. Unless they are doing something fully egregious. Unless they are being actively hurtful. These people should be treated with sympathy and with respect. I know I would treat them with sympathy and respect. And I know, or at least I'd hope so. I know that hopefully few of you are saying, well, duh, but really the ultimate point is, and I'm not trying to preach, the ultimate point is if you suffer from mental illness, as the saying goes, look for the silver lining in the cloud. And it helps. It does help to understand that the pain that you've gone through is not pointless, is not useless. It shapes you like any other experience does. It shapes me like any experience does or has. And I hate use statements anyway. It has shaped me in like any other experience has. And so ironically, while I do not have a very high opinion of myself, that is something I am proud of. That is something that does give me pride, is the empathy that I feel that I can be capable of. And that brings me joy. So I hope that others can kind of can find that silver lining as well. It may not be empathy, it may be something else. But I view that all experience, good, bad, ugly, there are positive takeaways. And if we are to survive, we need to find as many positive takeaways as we can get. And we need to hang our hats on them. All right, well, I almost let a DC there. Anyway, I hope this doesn't bum you out too much, and I hope you found it helpful. But I don't know about you, but I'm going to go get some ice cream and then come back and do a lecture on Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. All right, peace out. Oh.